I first moved to New York City straight out of college, and I was working in an office environment. I was a project manager, and I just immediately found myself very unhappy in that setting. And instead of focusing on work, I found all my free time. I was wandering around New York City. I was getting really into food. I was exploring bakeries. I was looking at restaurants. It was calling me. And as a way to create it myself, cookies became the vessel that I used to build my craft. And so I was baking all the time at night, and I would show up to my office to work, and I would have cookies for everyone. And I was getting more excited about bringing cookies to people than I was about any of the work that I was doing there. This work, my first job that I got was at a heavy metal record label. And so it was really fun. I was working with artists and musicians and photographers and things like that. And despite that all being really exciting, I was very unhappy doing the work. So I grew up in a very happy household, and we cooked a lot. The kitchen was a very open, creative, fun space. And through my father, I learned to not take food too seriously, and I learned to kind of riff. So anything that was at the market or whatever was in the fridge that day, we would be able to turn into a meal. And from my mother, I learned to use food as a way to connect with people. So hosting and having parties and cooking meals for people as an expression of love. But the key, the real part that turned me into cookies was my aunts. So every holiday season, I would go to my aunt's house, and they would have cookie dough and tubes of frosting and jars of frosting and piles of sprinkles. And we would just make heaps of cookies every year. And that really was my most exciting cooking experience from childhood. And that's what really sparked years later, once I started making cookies as an adult. I remembered I've been doing this since I was 4 years old, and so that was the through line for me. There are so many challenges to running a business in New York City. I don't even know where to begin. The odds are against you, kind of opening a business, but it is possible, and it takes being very creative, both in the craft that you're doing. So for me, I try to be as creative as possible with my cookies. It also takes being a creative business person. So if we put out one thing and customers don't like it and it's not selling, I have to be able to kind of adjust and think, how can I stay true to myself and my passion, but make a product that will bring us more business? And so there's creativity in that. There are challenges in running a New York City business because the expense of being there is just enormous. And so you really have to think about what you're making, the margins and how much it costs, what it costs to pay people, and make sure all the numbers make sense. The work culture at The Good Batch is, I think, very positive, and we work really hard on that, and it hasn't always been that way. And we've worked, my business partner and I are so dedicated to making the quality of life as an employee of The Good Batch very high. So we take as much care of our teammates as possible. So that's just listening to their needs. Every single person on our team, we have about 20 employees on our staff. So that's 20 different ways of managing people to some degree. It's 20 different ways of giving feedback and hearing feedback from them. And some people, I have to really draw it out. Other people will come to me right away if they have a problem. But I see that a kitchen, both the products that we're making and the people that work there, are a living organism, and it's always changing, and we cannot rely on anything to stay the same at any point. So we're really always paying attention to things that come out of our ovens, to the people that walk through our doors, to the energy and vibe between everyone. And if we see anything starting to change, which it does all the time, paying attention to it and being nimble and clever to make sure that we're ahead of that change and not on our back foot. The challenges that I'm looking at professionally right now, eventually I do want to write a cookbook. So that's kind of always in the back of my mind. And we are trying to figure out how to maintain a quality of life for myself, for my business partner, who is my husband, for the people on our team. We're trying to figure out how can we sustain that for another decade at least within the space that we have with the resources that we have. So trying to find a way to maximize our profits without making too many huge investments. So we want to stay in the space that we have, but we're being creative with what we can do there. Other challenges we're looking at, we're thinking of maybe launching a packaged cookie line. So finding a way for a big single individual cookie to be sealed and that can stay on shelves for up to a month. We've done that in the past, but we're thinking about bringing that back. Something that's really exciting for me personally is I've started a collaboration series with different New York City creatives. So I've worked with chefs, both savory and pastry. I've worked with an artist. And so what I do is I brainstorm with them a special flavor or something nostalgic for this friend, and then I bring that to life in a cookie. And these have just been immensely popular, and it's a way for me to push myself creatively as much as I can. Each of these cookies ends up being these beautiful works of art, and they're, again, just people flock to the bakery for them. So that's a personal challenge for me, is finding a way to continue creatively pushing myself as our company grows. I find staying creative takes practice. It's kind of a lifestyle, is to live a creative life. For me personally, because that's all I can speak to, I have a bunch of different ways that I stay creative. For starters is just being engaged in the pastry community. So that's everything from anytime I'm out in the city, whether I'm in New York City or traveling, I always go check out pastry shops. I'm always seeing what other people are doing. It's trying things. It's any new cookbook that comes out, I'm reading it, right? And it's not that I'm stealing ideas. It's just ideas kind of float around, and it's taking other people's and inspiration and piecing it together. I also find creativity from other forms of art. So that's music. I love to go to concerts. I love to go to museums, art museums, comedy shows even can sometimes inspire. Just being in a room of happy, laughing people, ideas can float. And something really important, I believe, is having a writing practice. So I write every day, and that's everything from journaling my thoughts, it's making lists, it's making anything that's kicking around in my head that's bothering me or I'm scared of or that I'm stressed or anxious about, I put it out on paper. And once you put it down on paper, it kind of forces you to look at it and start taking it to the next level. It forces you to start solving that problem. And so between the writing and experiencing art and engaging with the pastry community, I find this swirl of ingredients really helps propel me forward every day. Advice that I would give to someone starting out in pastry, whether it's bread or ice cream or confection or cookies, which is my love, is to be kind to yourself, to be patient, to believe that this is what you want to do, and no matter how many tries it takes, this is what you're doing. So start with your idea, make it as good as you can. Go on to the next thing. Don't give yourself a hard time if it doesn't come out exactly right. You try it again the next day. It might take a couple batches. I also would recommend, as you give it out to the world and start sharing your craft with the world, take that feedback. And if it's positive feedback, you thrive on it. And if it's negative feedback, if you feel like there's anything in there, take what you can, discard the rest because it's probably not going to be helpful, and keep going. For anyone starting a business, I would highly, highly recommend keeping an eye on your numbers and your finances, if that's something that you're comfortable doing. And if not, take a course, look online, or find someone that can help you. But it's so important as you start a business to keep an eye on your finances, and because it's no fun running a business that doesn't make money. So as you start to turn your craft into a profitable enterprise, it's important to make sure it is a profitable enterprise. And that might affect who you order from, where you get your ingredients from, how much you charge, and make sure you charge what your product is worth. Two chefs that I love are dear friends of mine, Fanny Garrison and Caroline Schiff. They are other New York City pastry chefs. Some favorite books is anything written by Pema Chodron, she's an American Buddhist nun. I find that very inspiring. But I also love Irish crime books by Tana French. So anything in that category. Music that I like to listen to in the kitchen ranges all over the place. Everything from the Beatles and Rolling Stones to Talking Heads to Notorious B.I.G. and Nas and Prince. But I really love bluegrass also. So it's like a whole blend of cultures and history there. What I would like people to take away from this course is hopefully to spark a love of baking cookies and demystify baking. I think baking gets have a bad reputation for being very meticulous and particular. And while it is important to follow the measurements and ingredients, there's so much room to play. And I hope that this course helps people riff and play in their own kitchen and find their own flavors to infuse into these cookies.